Okay, I decided to do a little twist on the Lemons tray kit. I wanted to make it a little bit, I was trying to think of how to paint it, and I decided to do more of a pink lemonade theme so that there's a little bit more colors. So if you don't want to do the pink, then you can just do variations of yellow. When you order this, you can just order a couple different colors or throw in some blue if you want. But mine is going to be pink lemonade. Normally, if you've watched my tier tray kits before, there's usually like 6 or 7 colors for the tier tray. So I usually organize my pieces by color. But since there's only 3 in this one, I think I'm just going to paint by piece because I'll be switching back and forth quite often. Another change that you'll notice, I'm trying to eliminate waste. So instead of sending paper and a paper plate with your kit, I'm just gonna have you open your box that your kit came in. You can cut it. For mine, I just opened it and then kind of folded down the flaps where it was curling up. And that's what you're gonna use to protect your area, but then also to like dab your paint off. I've obviously used mine a few different times. So do that this month, and then if you can give me feedback on how you like it, if you prefer the paper and the paper plate, or if this worked out well for you, let me know. Okay, normally your paint will come in trays, so you're not gonna be pouring your paint onto your box, but I'm gonna work on my jug first. So I'm going to take out my ice cubes, because I'm gonna do those white. My lemons, I'm gonna do yellow. My jug, I'll do white. And then this little outline, I'm going to do pink for the lemonade. So if this is your first time, for the small pieces, you take a wedge, you can't see it, dip it in the paint, just the edge, dab off the excess, especially on these pieces because they have etching in them. You want to make sure that you do not put a lot of paint in there. Otherwise, it's going to color that etching and it's not going to stay dark. So you're just going to want to lightly dab up and down with just little bits of paint. And then just do a couple coats of that. And with these, let's see, I need to clean my tweezers off. I have a lot of paint on them. With these smaller pieces, it's nice to use the tweezers to just kind of hold them down. Okay, while that is drying, because I'm going to do 2 coats on that, I'll take my other wedge. I really need to, since white is one of the most popular colors, I only have it in a big gallon, and I need to transfer it into a squirt bottle. Okay. Once I'm done with these ice cubes, we'll go over the foam brush technique. So if you've already done kits before, you can go ahead and skip past that if this is your first time. And then you want to watch that. And then I'll push pause and briefly go over the next. I feel like this will be a somewhat quick video just because there are only a few colors. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'll end up coming back and watching this and it'll be like an hour long. Okay, so for the foam brush, since I'm painting the actual jug white, you'll dip your foam brush in the white paint and then always start in the middle. You don't want to start right at the edge or else the paint is going to drip down and get the edges. And then as your brush is angled up, you go towards the edge. And as I get on all along the edges, I'll go in the direction that makes it easiest, but then I'll always make sure to lightly go over in the same direction. So whether you're mostly comfortable going up and down or side to side, you're gonna wanna make sure that it's uniform Otherwise, you're going to be able to see the direction that you're painting, and you want it to all look like it's going in the same direction. Same thing with the wedges. A little bit of paint is going, if you do 2 or 3 coats of light coats versus I'm just going to do a really thick coat of paint, it's going to look so much more professional with just a few light coats. And then you can use your sandpaper to sand in between if you want, very, 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 very lightly, and that will leave it smooth. On the handle, if you prefer, it would probably be easier to use a wedge on the handle, because as you can see, I got a little bit of white on the inner handle. So I'll just go over that with a baby wipe at the end and clean that up. Okay, so I'm gonna let these dry, do a second coat. I'm gonna paint this one pink, and then we'll come back for the next piece. I forgot to mention that with these pieces that have the etching inside of them, if you do happen to get some paint in there, while it's still wet, get the toothpick that I sent in your kit and just outline it. And that's gonna bring the paint right out. Okay, so once you're done with those pieces, set them aside to dry. If you plan on like taking your time with this kit, I would just get some plastic wrap and wrap it around your foam brushes that have paint on them, just so that they don't dry out in between pieces. That's why I normally go by color, just to make sure that doesn't happen. But since I'm doing piece by piece, this kit is a little bit different for me. Okay, so I'm gonna do my banner next, the banner and the hearts. The banner I'm going to do yellow, and the hearts I'm going to do pink. So for all of that, since they're smaller pieces, I'm going to use the wedges. And like I say, it's always personal preference. I feel like the wedges give it a more uniform, like a smoother finish, I should say, because you don't see the brush strokes. However, if it's a large area, I'm not patient enough, like with the jug, not patient enough for that. If you are new to these kits and I am going too fast, please reach out to me and let me know. And I will either do a live or a personal video for you, or I can explain it in more detail. I just know that most people only watch these videos like for the putting together part. And so I always feel not rushed, but I don't want to just give useless information. So please let me know if I am leaving things out or I'm not explaining it enough. Again, the most important thing is when you're dabbing in paint, it's not even on the camera. When you're dabbing it in paint, dab off the excess onto the side, just so you are only using a little bit at a time. I guess I should make sure that this is in the camera. And then I'm gonna do the same thing with the hearts. The only difference is I'm going to use my tweezers. Now, I probably didn't explain it well, oh, there it is, my pink wedge. So picking up with these tweezers is hard for me because it will fling the piece away. So I basically just put pressure on the sides to hold the piece down so that it stays down instead of coming up with the wedge and paint. So just find, like I go in between the heart right there, just find a good spot for you. And then I just apply pressure just so it stays down. Okay, I'm gonna do, once this is dry, I'm gonna do 2 coats on each piece, and then we'll come back for our next piece. And like I say, this isn't dry yet, but maybe one of these pieces is dry. This one's dry. So it's not perfectly smooth. I don't know if you can even see that on the camera. So you can either leave it, or if you wanted to get your sandpaper, I don't apply pressure down. I barely place it on the top and then run the sandpaper over it just to make it a little bit smoother. And it just makes it look nicely finished. So I'm going to do that with each piece, and then we'll come back for the next. Okay, the next piece that I'm going to work on is this Squeeze the Day piece. So I've kind of organized my pieces. Sorry, let me just get this a little wet. By color. So the letters for squeeze, the day, not the, day, squeeze, and then the back of the lemon, I am going to do those yellow. Then the lemon rind, I'm going to do white. I'm going to do pink. And then I'm actually going to use these detail brushes to paint every other stripe. If you just want it to look like a shiplap, then just paint over it. Same technique as before, just light coats. And then if you happen to get paint inside the lines, just get your toothpick and slide it right along the line like this, and it'll bring the paint right out. I also wrapped, just showing you, I just got saran wrap and wrapped this foam brush since it had the white paint on it, just so it doesn't dry out. Okay, maybe we'll do this first, because since it's a larger area, it's going to take a little bit longer to dry. So I am just going to, oh my gosh, I just dipped this in the pink paint, so that is now my pink brush. And it is totally okay if you get white in the etching for the letters, because that's just a guideline for the 3D letters to glue down on. So you don't need to worry about paint getting in there, as long as you can kind of see them once we're ready to glue down. Just gonna do the same technique. Just try to go light when it comes to the edges. And if this is too much for you and you think, oh, I don't have the patience for that, you don't have to do it straight. That's totally okay. I'm so messy today. Usually I don't have a problem with my sides, but I'm going too fast or something. Okay. I got a little bit of paint, so I'm just gonna do that, and it looks totally fine. Can you even see? I think making videos is my most hated thing, because it's obviously not something I'm used to. Surprise, I know. The lighting, the angles, they look super professional, right? So, if you're done with one project and you're like, oh my gosh, that helped me out 0%, then just let me know. Okay, now that I've already done the white, I'm trying to make sure that I can see, but I'm trying to let you see. I'm just gonna go slowly once it gets to the edge. And then I should have said this for the first piece, and I didn't. Okay, the mail truck is coming, so if my dogs start barking, I am sorry. Macy. If you like the rustic look, so let's say you wanted to sand so that it looks farmhousey, I guess, only do one coat. Otherwise, you're going to be sanding way more than you want to. So one coat would be perfectly fine. Then use your sandpaper to just go over it to give it that chippy look, I guess you would say. I do that on some of my pieces. This one, I actually am kind of liking the look of the one coat on this, which I was not expecting. Yeah, I'll probably do 2 coats. But if you're doing sanding, then you don't have to worry so much about staying exactly in the lines. And honestly, here's the thing. It's totally fine if you get a little bit outside of the lines, because it's, number one, it's homemade. I'm just gonna have to paint over that. Number two, it's paint, so you can always go back and redo it. And then that is also pink. And it's yours. Something that you can be proud of, because when you display it, you're the one who made it. So I think that's the most important thing. This is kind of harder to find an area to hold on to. There we go. Okay, so I'm gonna go over everything. Again, my rind will be white and then the rest will be yellow. I'm gonna go over everything twice and then next piece. Okay, I have 3 pieces left and I'm gonna go ahead and paint them at once. So first of all, I went and rinsed out my brushes because I wanted to make sure that they didn't get crusty. So if you're moving quickly and it feels like they're still soft, then that's great. I just noticed on my second time around of painting this piece that they were feeling a little bit harder. So I did rinse them and they're good to go for the next piece. So I'm going to organize my pieces by color. So I'm going to do this, the lemonade stand white, and you know what, maybe I will organize it and then come back and just show you the pieces. I think that would be less confusing. Okay, I just got them organized. They didn't take very long. The big pieces that I'm going to do white is going to be this pucker stand, the background of the jar, and the lemonade stand. Another thing that will be white is the little embellishment for the jar and this part of the jar, but I'm also doing the lemonade in yellow. And so this will actually be 2 colors. So I'm going to save this for last. So the little piece, I'm going to use my wedge for. So dip it in your paint, dip off the excess, and then light dabs up and down. Okay, and then I'll need 2 coats for that. These other pieces, you know what, no. I'm gonna use my wedge for the top of this lemonade stand, and then I'll use my foam brush for the rest of it. And I'll do the same with the outline of the jar. Where it gets skinny, I'll use my wedge. And then I'll probably use my wedge for the top too, just because it's not that big. Okay. So since I'm going to paint the word white, all I'm going to do is have paint on the very edge of the wedge and just carefully go around it. And then when I paint that yellow, same thing. I'll just get paint on the very, very edge of the wedge, and then make sure that I don't go over. And if you do, you can always just put a little bit more paint on it. Okay, and then when you get to the etch parts, just like I said before, if you get paint in there while it's still wet, just use your toothpick to pull it out. And then if it gets over on the edges of your pieces, I don't remember if I said that in this video or if I just say it in my other ones. I say it so many times that I'm forgetting, but if you get them over on the edges, you can either ignore it. I just got a little bit on this one. I don't know what my problem is today. I'm getting way more on the edge than normal. You can either ignore it, get either a damp paper towel or a baby wipe is what I use, and then just wipe it and it comes right off. Or you can use your piece of sandpaper to sand it off. The baby wipe for me is the fastest way. I'm actually going to do this one first. Oh, forgot I wrapped up my foam brush, which is good because it was a little bit before I got back to it. Okay, I'm going to wipe the excess off on my box and then just go in the middle. And then, as you can see, I got, if you can see that, I got some paint in there, so I just go right across it and it makes it dark again. Used a little too much. Okay, I'm going to, I think what I'm going to do actually is only do one coat. Yes, I'm only gonna do one coat on the lemonade stand because I think I want to sand it a little bit so that part looks a little bit more rustic, like some kids just made a lemonade stand or something. But it does need a little bit more paint around the edges. Okay. Once that's completely dry, I'm gonna sand it lightly. And I will do that with this as well, this little palette pucker. Okay, I'm gonna paint these with my foam brush and then we'll come back for the next pieces. Okay, for the yellow, I'm going to do basically all of the lemons, the large, medium, and small, and then the lemonade word in the jar cutout. And then I'm also going to do the stripes in the straw. So I'm going to start with that. So I'm going to use the little detail brush to paint each little square or rectangle. And I'll probably want to do 2 coats, maybe. I'm doing the second. I'm starting with the second one, so pink will be on top, but just in case you're wondering. Okay, I don't know if you can see that or if the lighting is terrible. Okay, I'm gonna get my wedge, dip it, dab off the excess, and then be really, really careful on the edge to make sure it doesn't spill over a ton. And then the rest of the word, you don't have to be as careful. And then as I get towards this edge, be a I'm gonna look a little bit closer to make sure. There we go. And I might only need, we'll see, sometimes when it dries, you can see all of the wood grain come through. So even though I thought I did a good job, kind of have to wait till it dries to see. Okay, on the big lemon and, sorry, I'm gonna push pause because they're about to bark. Oh wait, maybe my husband is home. Okay, maybe they'll stop. So on the big lemon and the middle size lemon, you don't have to be super careful about the lettering because you're gluing something on top of that. So don't worry about using the toothpick to like pull the paint out. But on this little lemon, I can't cut something, I mean, it would just break if I cut the 25-cent that small. So I'm just going to use super light paint on my wedge when I do that one to make sure that I don't get paint in there. So I'm gonna dab it off extra good and then barely dab up and down, and just know that I'm gonna do that a couple times to make sure it's fully covered. Okay, I'm gonna let this dry and then I'm gonna do it a second time, and then we'll go to our last bits and pieces. Okay, the last set is for the pink. I'm going to do the freshly squeezed banner, the mini banner, the 25 cents pucker, the letters that say up, they go on the lemon, and then the letters that spell out fresh. So I'm going to use a wedge for all of it. I'm going to start with this freshly squeezed. Dab off almost all the paint and use the lightest touch up and down to make sure that you don't flood the words. Got a paintbrush hair in there. Oh yeah, that's the other thing. I almost forgot because I had it sitting out to dry. The straw. I'm going to paint the other stripes of that pink. I'll do that next. I think the mail check is here because my dog is barking. Okay, set that aside, and then I'll do the stripes next. So I'm just going to wipe off excess to make sure that I'm only using a little bit of paint at a time since I've already done the yellow. So I'm going to take a little bit more time when I do it, because when I did the first color, if a little bit spilled over, I didn't care because I knew I would just paint over it. But with this kind of wood, if you prefer to use markers, you can do that as well. You can color it. I'm going to get me a set of paint markers. I've heard really great things about them. They're really vibrant and they're really great for little areas like this. I really want to try them out, but they are expensive for good ones. So just a warning if you decide to go that route. Okay, I might only need one coat of that, we'll see. Maybe two since I just dropped it on its face. Okay, everything else is same old. I'm gonna hold it down with my tweezers while I use the wedge to softly go up and down. These will go really quickly, but as always, I'm doing 2 coats. You only need to do 1 if you want everything to look rustic. So I will push pause on this and then come back when it's ready to glue everything together. Now it's the exciting part, time to put everything together. Remember how I said at the beginning, oh, there's only 3 colors, so maybe this video will be super short. There's only 3 colors, but this is a long tear tray kit, just like everything else. I was foolish. Anyways, okay, there's 2 types of super glue. If you get, oh, it's up there. If you get a white and blue cap, then once you twist the cap on, that's what activates it. If you get this kind of super glue, the puncture is at the top of the lid, so you will need to hold it over your box, not over your pieces, or you're going to be really sad. Sometimes there's a lot of pressure and it starts to come out. So you'll puncture it, twist the cap on, and then this top comes off. Okay, so I'm going to start with my jug. I'm going to take the juice out. Remember, a little bit of super glue goes a long ways. You want to kind of drag it along and don't hit the very edges or else it's going to like splurt out. I just kind of do a little pattern and then eyeball it over so it outlines your jug, and then hold down for like 5 to 10 seconds as well. So that's what it will look like. Obviously, you know that the circle lemon where that goes, and then the half lemon wedge where that goes. I also forgot to mention, make sure that you wash your hands. I probably should go wash mine. I have a little bit of white on them. Otherwise, especially on the white pieces, if you push down and you have color on your hands, it will transfer the paint. So make sure that you have clean hands. Now, as far as the ice cubes, you're going to want to make sure they fit because they are slightly different. So know where each one goes before you drop one in, because you might drop one that's a little bit smaller in a piece and then you're going to have a blank ice cube spot because nothing's going to fit in there. So this one will only fit there, goes on my bottom, and I'm just going to do like a dot on there, and then this one will fit in there. That one, let's find out. Yep, okay, literally a dot right in the middle. This might be a time for tweezers. I super glue my fingers together all the time, and so I don't really care. Okay, and then we've got our cute little pink lemonade jar, and we'll set that aside to dry. Then let's do our squeeze the day piece. So I'm going to push everything off. Okay, I'm going to do the lettering first. So as far as the day, oh, I should have gone this way, day, you don't need to super glue every single piece. So I'm just going to do like the thicker pieces. That's where I'm going to barely squeeze, and I press the tip against the wood and I'm barely squeezing on these thicker pieces. Then the leftover glue that's on the lid, I'm not squeezing at all. That's where I hit just the ends. You don't need to glue every piece. And then just make sure that it lines up with the etch so that you don't see that through. And remember, super glue dries really fast. Okay, so for something like this, that's going to be really hard to get the super glue in there without getting it all over your fingers. So you can either try, or another technique, you can use your tweezers for this if you want. I just use my fingers and then just kind of hold the very top of it. I put super glue on my box and I barely dip it into the super glue, dip off the excess, and then press it down where it goes. I do that with these little pieces. So like all these little letters, that is exactly what I'm going to do. And you'll want to move fairly quickly because it does dry pretty fast. And the reason, oh, that super glue I think is drying. The reason I dip off the excess is just to ensure that it doesn't squeeze out the side, because you'll be able to see it, but that's okay. You can't eliminate all of it. If you really hate super glue, I send this because number one, it's easy to package and travel since it comes in its own little bottle, but two, it's fast. If you really don't like it, you can always go and buy wood glue from the store and put it on these pieces with, oh, I already went and rinsed it out, the little detail brush. So you'd have to paint it, but that takes a lot longer to dry. So you would need to keep your pieces set out for like 30 minutes or so to make sure it sets. So it gives you more time to finagle your pieces, but it's a lot more time consuming, I feel like. Okay, and then for the rind, I am just going to put a dot in the middle, and I'm not going to really squeeze hardly at all as I go around the edges. And then line that up around the edges. Press down for just a second. And then that, see, it's glued to my finger too, so it's totally okay. Figure out where you want that. I'm just going to do like a little swirl right there. And then line it up on the edge. And press down for just a couple seconds. Okay. And then we've got Squeeze the Day. Okay, let's do our banner. So I'm going to have all of the holes at the top, so you see them on the bottom. I'm going to take all my hearts down. Okay, this is just going to be an eyeball. I want my hearts right in the middle, so I'm just going to put a dot. And then where the first one goes, just a dot in the middle. I'm just going to try to match them up. So that they just look somewhat similar. And if you're, don't be like me, I never pay attention. Well, as you saw, I put my paintbrush down in wet paint. I just put my super glue down in the wet super glue. I'm not a clean crafter. And just like that, the banner is done. Now I'm not going to whip these around because I'm going to let them completely dry, but I'm going to set them off to the side. Okay, let's do our little lemonade stand. I'm being careful because nothing is glued down yet. Okay, so you have essentially 4 pieces. You've got your freshly squeezed banner, the mini lemon, the mini banners, and then the lemonade stand. So the freshly squeezed is going to go right at the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put super glue across here. If you put it on the back of here, you're not gonna, it's gonna drip down the side because it's not gonna, my hair's going crazy. So I'm just going to do a quick line across and then hold it up as I eyeball it to make it look like it's even on the sides. Oops, oh my goodness, and then I moved it, so now it might be crooked a little bit. It's okay. I'm gonna hold it down for 5 to 10 seconds because this is a bigger piece. The small pieces, I pretty much just set them down and put a little pressure and then move on, but the bigger pieces I wanna hold on for a little bit. I'm gonna put my lemon up on the side, kind of like an advertisement, but you can put yours wherever you want. Same thing, I'm gonna put the dot on the actual, I'm gonna put a little bit more on the stand, not on the lemon. And I'm gonna try to hold that steady because it's kind of, okay. And then as far as the banner, before I glue it, I'm gonna set it up because there's no string, obviously, because it's so tiny. So I'm gonna set it up kind of how I want it to look, as if it was strung across the top. So I'm going to have it kind of bow a little bit. And then once I'm happy with how it looks, I'm just gonna pick up one at a time, put a dot in the middle, and press down for a second. I'm gonna do the ends first so that then it's easier for me to make sure that these are even. Okay. Let's see if it's dry enough to hold up. But this is what your lemonade stand will look like. Okay, let's do the palette, the pucker up palette. I probably want to sand this a little bit more. I probably need a new sandpaper because this is not bringing up much paint. It's okay. Okay, so I'm just going to work on the pucker. I'm just going to go ahead and hit just a few of the thicker pieces. No rhyme or reason. Just making sure that. And then I put down the P and then slowly work my way over. It's a thin, or I should say quickly work my way over. It's a thin lettering, so it's easy to manipulate to make sure that you're covering up that guideline. And then I set my super glue and then super glue again. And I'm gonna do the U. Make sure that covers up the etching. And the P. Come on. And then I'm going to set my lemon on an angle so the word up looks straight. And I'm just gonna do, oh my goodness, this super glue is super runny, just an FYI. I usually use a different kind. This one is like water. Okay, then we have our pucker up palette. Now for our last piece, the lemonade jar. So I am going to do the fresh lettering first. So this one, I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I'm going to put my super glue on my box, slightly dip the excess out, and then lay it over. Dip a little, and then Okay. So once that is done, then I'm gonna go to my jar. I don't even think I'm gonna glue the lemonade part. I think that that's just gonna make a mess. So I'm going to squiggle some on the lid, and then I'm not even gonna squeeze until I get to the bottom, and then I need a little bit more. But I just use the excess that's already on the lid, so not even squeezing at all. And then I'm going to make sure that it fits all the way around evenly, and then press down. And this one you might have to keep it down if it's kind of wonky. Sometimes with temperature changes, it warps the wood a bit. So if you have to hold it down, I'd hold it down for like 10 seconds because that's when it's gonna dry. So, okay, then let's do this piece. You can either hold it and do this, or you can put some on your box and dip it in. But this just goes, this little smile goes over that etching just to give your bottle like a 3D effect. You don't have to hold it down for that long. Now the straw, the larger portion, I did mine pink, but the larger section that's on the bottom, and it's just gonna kind of go out the side. So I'm gonna figure out where I want mine to go. I'm gonna have mine like right there, and then I'm just gonna put a line on the jar versus on the straw. So just a little bit of glue. And that I'm going to hold down for about 10 seconds because I want to make sure it dries since there's only a little bit of it that's being glued. Okay, the 25 cents on the lemon, I'm putting super glue on the box. I didn't mean to completely drop that. And then hold that down for a second. Figure out how you want this to fit. I think I'm going to do mine a little bit. Put mine on the side. And do mine like that. Right in the middle for mine. Oh, my goodness. The super glue made it very slippery. Okay, and there you have your jar of lemonade. Okay, now's the time where you can make it personal to you. So, for instance, if this is enough and that's all you want to do, that's great. This was actually, I was thinking, oh, this kit will be so fast because there's only 3 colors and normally I have so many other colors and hopefully people don't think it's too easy. This kit was a bit time consuming. So I think it's because there's so many details. But I'm going to go ahead, if you wanted to rinse your detail brushes off because then you can add stripes. I'm going to do polka dots. So I'm going to get the toothpick. Again, I included that in your kit. And so where my lemonade stand is, I'm just going to go ahead and add little polka dots to my banner. I'm probably going to add some little dots on the letters to give them a little bit of highlight. Maybe on a couple of the lemons. So you'll see from the picture, I always print a picture off and include it in your box. You can follow that, or you can add your own little details. You can just add none because you're done. Either way. So just make sure that you just be creative in your own way and add anything that, oh, with the hearts. So for this banner, I'm just going to dip my toothpick in the white, and then I'm just going to kind of drag it down so that there's like a little, can you see that? It looks like it's blurry. just a little highlight. So I'm going to do that. I'll probably put a few dots on the lemons. And so anyways, I hope you've really enjoyed this kit. I just realized as I stopped the video, so I'll have to splice these together. I forgot to show you how to string your banner, just in case you have a question. So the only thing that's not included in your kit is you'll want the teeniest, tiniest piece of Scotch tape. And then I like to wrap mine around the end of the twine because this will help it so it doesn't fray. You might be able to get it through all of the holes before it frays. But twine frays so easily that if you do the Scotch tape, it just makes it so much easier. You can string it any way you want. You can have the twine in the front like I'm doing, or you can have it in the back. And then I don't really pay too much attention to how they're positioned until I get them on my tier tray, because I don't know how I'm going to want them spaced. So I just go ahead and string them, and then once I'm ready to decorate, then I'll put them how I want them to look. So, but I wanted to show you that tip with the tape so you didn't get too frustrated.